1962, the heyday of hairdos and hair don'ts.
We shall overcome someday.
Not with that hair, you won't.
Heartthrobs and hefty girls.
Mama, welcome to the 60s.
Hot dates and hip talkers.
No matter what you've heard, we are going to teach the white children how to do the bird. Flap your wings, flap your wings.
Beatniks and hair hoppers.
I can't see through her hair.
And one magic potion that holds it all together.
They put me in special ed just because of my hair.
It's the times. They're a-changing. Something's blowing in the wind.
Let's get naked and smoke.
Are you now, or have you ever gone steady?
You got something against Connie Francis?
White trash, plain and simple.
Bet you my diet pills, would you, hon?
Oh, Mother, you're so 50s.
Starring Sonny Bono, Ruth Brown, Divine, Michael St. Gerard, Debbie Harry, Ricky Lake, Jerry Stiller, and Sean Thompson. The new comedy from John Waters. It's way beyond Grease. Hairspray.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, listeners, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in between. We're back for another great one. My name's Pete.
And I'm Scott. And these are the movies that made us gay.
Yay! Welcome back. Scott, did you enjoy the movie?
I really enjoyed the movie.
Me too. It was so much fun.
Great.
I've got a lot to say about this one. I hold it dear to my heart. Would you like to introduce our guest and talk about the movie we just saw?
Of course. Well, we have a returning guest today, Movies That Made Us Gay All-Star, Brian Boskind.
Yay.
You might remember him from the Supergirl episode.
Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be back.
So we briefly talked about John Waters' Hairspray on your last episode, and we decided to invite you back for a full episode of Hairspray, our first John Waters movie on the podcast.
Wow.
Oh, well, I'm glad I can christen the John Waters podcast.
So, and Brian, you were an extra in this movie because you were from Baltimore.
Yes, I was a council guest dancer.
That is amazing.
That's so cool.
That's like the ultimate, if you want to like break the ice with someone, if you're out at a gay bar, just mention that you're an extra in John Waters' Hairspray.
It actually has kind of done that.
Has
sometimes.
it bought you numerous drinks?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Drinks and a dance.
I'd use it. I mean,
Of
come
course.
on.
Yeah, it was it was a time, and it was a family full circle in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll just talk about it. Like we'll talk about all of how that came to be, you being in this movie.
Yeah,
and,
we'll get into it.
Okay.
and all of our thoughts on this. Oh my God, I love Hairspray.
Well, we immediately knew that we had to do a John Waters movie in season 2, and I suppose there was a few different directions we could have introduced John Waters on this podcast.
Sure.
But I'm glad that we picked Hairspray.
Yes. I mean, I had a lot of feelings about Johnny Depp in Crybaby.
It's a good one.
Between me down there. But because he definitely knew how to wear a pair of 501s.
Yeah.
In Crybaby. But this is my introduction to John Waters, into that crazy world. I just feel like it's the one that kind of, if you're not familiar at all with his work, then it can introduce you to the world of
It's a good
John
rein
Waters.
in
the Dreamland.
Yeah, because there's enough, like, what did they just do still in it to harken back to where he's coming from.
Yes, yeah. It's not like Pink Flamingos or Female Trouble where you're just like, is this a porno? when they start taking their clothes off? Oh, that's when they start taking their clothes off.
Yeah, and I was going to say it's a good reined in version of John Waters too. That it doesn't quite go off the rails like most of his movies, and that's why we love John Waters. But they set out to make a family movie, and I'll be damned if John Waters didn't make
a family
movie.
But I'll also say it's kind of because the material that it's all based on kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I mean, the race relations in Baltimore at that time and what really happened to the Buddy Dean show and things like that, that is enough meat right there.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, since this is an early example of a movie being turned into a Broadway musical that was in turn produced as a Hollywood major motion picture.
Right.
So there's a lot of...
That's happened a couple times
so
since
there's
then.
a lot of younger generations that their only context for Hairspray is
the musical.
The 2007...
the movie of the musical.
Yes,
indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad you guys are doing this, since this movie, all those songs are of the time.
Right.
A lot of them regional to the Baltimore area.
Yeah.
And the location filming in Baltimore, I can say this as my hometown. Baltimore is a time warp in some of those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And in 88... they didn't take a lot of fixing for those neighborhoods to look like they were from the 60s.
That's amazing. And I know John Waters is a stickler for location shooting.
Area geography.
And geography in his movies. Because that's kind of... Scott and I are very... We're such movie nerds. We rewatch movies, watch them multiple times. And being that we're, in the Los Angeles area, so many movies are just set here because of convenience and shooting. Right. It's just kind of... sticks in my craw if somebody's like driving somewhere and they're driving and the direction of the vehicle in the movie is completely wrong. I'm just like, why would they be going that way to go to that city? And I know John Waters is very particular about that.
It's like in the movie Pecker, when they walk out of the laundromat, you can literally trace the journey to Pecker's house just from like where they're going.
Sure.
Or when like the limo is driving down the street and Cecil B. Demented.
Yeah.
You can literally track that on a map.
Yeah, they're going in the right direction. And it's interesting, though, the way you talked about Baltimore, because this movie doesn't take time to like pretty it up. Like the I feel like, and the musical, while still kind of embracing the John Waters-ness of it and the kind of like seedy, like filth of John Waters, but the exteriors do look a lot prettier than this. They look more like movie sets, where this looks like they just drove out there to these locations, those row houses, that they lived in, and when we were watching it, I was like, well, even Amber and the Von Tussles, they even live in a row. I mean, they have the whole house. Yeah. The Turnblads lived upstairs.
There were the upscale row houses and the not so much.
The shaded brick looks a little prettier.
It's really interesting when you're in Baltimore, and that whole kind of like class structure of row houses is very interesting too. Yeah. And also just speaks of period architecture and what the amount of detail and interesting things they would put in it anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't have anything like that here on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's like townhouses, but they don't look anything like an East Coast row house. I think of like Rocky. I think of this. That's like just so foreign to me, being from here. All right, Scott, what do you got?
Well, a little background on Hairspray. John Waters' Hairspray opened February 26, 1988. Hairspray was a moderate success in its initial theatrical release, earning a modest $8 million. So it did make back its budget in its initial release.
Okay.
But it managed to kind of attract its larger audience thanks to its home video and cable airings of the early 90s, and has since become a cult classic. Also, the film was nominated for 6 Indie Spirit Awards in the early years of the Independent Spirit Awards, including nominations for Ricky Lake and Divine. And it won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah. So, and also, John Waters wrote the screenplay under the title White Lipstick, with the story loosely based on real events. The Corny Collins Show is based on the real-life Buddy Dean Show, as we mentioned, a local dance program which preempted Dick Clark's American Bandstand in the Baltimore area during the 50s and early 60s.
That's so cool that this is like that. There's so much reverence for like this real, show that took place in there. You mentioned before, how long was the Buddy Dean show on each day?
It was 2.5 hours a day for 6 days a week, so it ran from 57 to 64. It just, he knew, as someone who grew up then, as Divine would have also, all of that teenage energy and angst only had so many outlets back then. And so these dance shows and the social lives of in Corny Collins' council, the Buddy Dean called it the committee, those regular dancers, that was important stuff, serious for them back then.
Yeah. And these kids, like, do they go to, like, they had to go to school?
Yeah.
They get pulled out of school to be on this local dance show for
they got to
hours
leave
at a
early,
time?
probably at like 2:30.
Not worry about their homework
every day. Yeah, I don't know. Do you know how that worked?
I love that. Though.
I don't. It was like a local celebrity.
But I would imagine that there was just a fascination with all of these kids and teenagers watching the shows this time.
Yeah.
Of who were these teenagers that were just these local celebrities. They would do local commercials. They would do they would make appearances at dances and like special record events.
So John Waters talked in the commentary about these kids being celebrities because, like you said, when you're a teenager and you're in this town and it's the 60s, pre-internet and cable TV and all that stuff, you get so immersed in their lives. So they were local celebrities, but on the other side of that, I can imagine when they did go to school just getting kind of picked on or made fun of or whatever. Because I know growing up in LA, especially, you always knew somebody that went to school with like the third lead on like Punky Brewster or something.
The industry kids.
And as a kid, you're like, wow, they go to school with like the kid from Who's the Boss's like cousin or whatever. And then it turns out that person just was like annihilated every day because people would just pick on them all the time. I mean, it's a jealousy thing for like small kids, but it's like this double-edged sword.
That's a good point. I don't know if like the tougher crowds seeing someone in school who was a dancer would have, been like, oh,
Yeah.
But then again, I just don't know if they would have taken it all in at a different level, because it was also the time when, the music of the day.
Yeah.
To be hearing a lot of these things for the first time, before we know a lot of stuff as classics or the genre and everything, it was all formative to them too.
Sure.
And they would test out a lot of the music with the record companies in places like Baltimore, right? With these types of shows.
I guess they would. I think they did do that a lot with any of the local dance places, because it's also a time when just about every city throughout the country had their own local programming.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of cities would have their own kind of a version of this before American Bandstand kind of went nationwide, I would imagine.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, every city had their own version of like a creature feature with an Elvira type of host of some sort, the cartoon presenter for when kids got back, got home from school.
Yes. We had Family Film Festival on Channel 5. Yeah. on Saturday and Sunday mornings and afternoons. I loved it.
We didn't have anything like this in Montana growing up.
Family Film Festival was amazing. He would show Pippi Longstocking and Three Stooges and he would draw a little picture on like this whiteboard. It was great. But also the other thing about like just the timing is like, people talk about, or like historians talk about like the 50s being just kind of like this revolutionary time for the American teenager, coming into their own and being able to drive cars and, and the music kind of changing so drastically. And like the music of this movie, this is like this soul music, these like 60s, like girl groups, things like that. Music is definitely changing. Young people are changing how music is being listened to across the country. And it's changing from like, Lawrence Welk,
right,
and like all of that to what will become rock and roll,
right,
in like 10 years.
Right. And even Prissy Amber Von Tussle, the villain of the piece and the kind of like bigoted white family piece, she still says though, that is in regards to the music, that it's got a beat and you can dance to
Yeah.
it. When her mother asks, why you're dancing to the colored music.
Yeah.
And so, whether or not she will defend, black people, she'll defend the music because she knows it's good.
Yeah. I mean, that is still prevalent today. I mean, it is nothing has changed in that arena. Don't you got something against Shelley Fabares? I remember as a kid, Shelley Fabares was on Coach. She was like the love interest of Craig T. Nelson on Coach. And I mean, to me, as like a small child watching the sitcom, I didn't know her from, I wouldn't know that she was like a teen, singer.
Right. And she's in some of the Beach Party era.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Also,
that makes sense.
Younger.
Yeah. And I also thought when I would watch Coach, which I didn't very often because I was an adult person show.
Yeah, that's a grown-up show.
Yeah, it was a grown-up show. They didn't really watch. There were no kids on Coach. But I always remembered I couldn't pronounce her name. I just remember reading it going, okay, I don't know how to say that. But then like later on I put two and two together. Scott, when did you first see Hairspray?
This was not a movie that I grew up on. I can definitely say my first John Waters movie, but I don't think that I probably watched Hairspray until probably 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I'm relatively newer to it, but my history with John Waters is I remember renting Cecil B. Demented when it came out in like 2000. That was like my first context for a cool John Waters movie that was a little independent underground at the time.
Yeah.
But because I just remember reading stuff in Premiere Magazine for it and seeing it in my local video store. Uh-huh. And I remember that was my introduction to John Waters.
Okay.
And that movie is crazy.
What did you think of it?
I just remember just not really having a context for John Waters, that I'm just being thrown into this movie.
Yeah.
And I think I was into it.
Yeah.
When I first saw it.
Okay.
Just because, like, I really liked Melanie Griffith. I was a big Milk Money fan.
Her finest hour.
Yep. I just forced Pete to rewatch Milk Money the other night.
You did indeed.
But I was thinking that she just was a really great movie star.
Sure.
And I thought Stephen Dorff was really cute. It kind of had a random collection of supporting players that I remember: Adrian Grenier, Alicia Witt.
Very early Michael Shannon.
Yeah, early Michael Shannon.
And Cecil B. Demented.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, in college, I discovered movies like Pecker, Female Trouble, Pink Flamingos. So yeah. And now I think I have the criterions for all of the major John Waters movies.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I have an older sister that I reference on this show a lot. We
need to get her on one of these days.
We do, because she introduced me to a lot of these movies. She would go and get them from the video store, and we would sit down and watch them. And I was 11 when this movie was on video, and she introduced me to Rocky Horror, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and weird shit like that. We saw Frankenstein Unbound with Sting when I was like 8. What am I doing watching this movie?
What's that?
It was.
I know he was in The Bride.
The Bride. I'm sorry. The Bride was The Bride with Sting. That's it. Frankenstein Unbound was somebody else. But we saw all these weird movies, and she brought home Hairspray. And to me, as an 11-year-old kid, I'm seeing this, and I see, the opening credits of this movie, and what's the actor who plays Link? Michael St. Gerard. Michael St. Gerard is spraying his hair, and he just looks like he's just like getting a blowjob.
Yeah.
He's spraying his hair, and these girls. It doesn't look like a lot of the teenage girl dancers. It doesn't look like they're wigged. This looks like all their hair that they just kind of did.
Ricky Lake said that her hair was never the same after this movie.
Yeah, Ricky Lake's hair is nuts.
The hair. That was a whole thing, and the people doing the hair, it was just a crack up. The whole thing was a crack up.
Probably Debbie Harry is the only person that's wigged in the entire movie of the main cast.
But
I mean, obviously, like Divine.
Yeah, but I just remember seeing a lot of the jokes, seeing Divine, seeing John Waters coming in with the hypnotism stick, getting Penny and Penny Pingleton. You're gonna wear a giant P so everybody knows you're permanently punished. And as an 11-year-old, to me, I equated it with an Airplane kind of movie, just that absurd humor. So to me, I was just like, this is wacky. This is that world.
Right.
So
because you wouldn't have been exposed to the kind of, again, because of the setting of the film time-wise, the kind of almost like reefer madness sort of child psychology.
Exactly.
We better,
Yeah. So not getting that, I got the broad jokes. And to me, the broad humor really kind of pulled me in. And then just kind of seeing I don't know, something about seeing Ricky Lake being this chubby girl as the main character, and then there was the big racial message throughout the movie. But yeah, something about just seeing the aesthetic of seeing Sonny Bono and knowing who Sonny Bono was, even as an 11-year-old, just going, okay, he's an old pop star that my parents listened to, and now he's playing the square dad, so I caught on to certain things, and I just really grasped onto it, and took me on a larger John Waters journey. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't long after that Crybaby came out, and my sister and I just were like, okay, this movie is everything.
All girls from East LA love them some Crybaby.
I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. We love Hatchet Face, first of all. But yeah, it was just... I loved it the first time I saw it. I thought it was super funny. And then now as an adult, I just appreciate the larger themes that I kind of didn't get at the time. But yeah, it's really good. And Michael St. Gerard is very cute.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have in my notes Michael St. Gerard... The leading man that never was. Aww. He played Elvis in a couple TV movies because he's kind of a dead ringer for Elvis Presley.
Kind of.
And his career just never quite went anywhere.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Which is kind of a shame because I think he is so handsome.
I remember seeing Great Balls of Fire. He played Elvis in that. But I don't think that's a very good movie. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember it being good or not.
And that's with Winona Ryder and Dennis Quaid, right?
Dennis Quaid as Jerry Lee Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think you probably see Dennis Quaid's buns in that one because he showed him off in everything in the late 80s and early 90s.
Night the lights went out in Georgia.
What's my favorite?
Do you see Dennis Quaid's buns in that?
You see a lot of them.
I remember pausing my Laserdisc of Interstellar.
Inner Space.
Inner Space. Because there's that opening shot with him in the sheet when Meg Ryan gets in the car and she drives away.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I got a little crushy on Sean Thompson, Mr. Corny Collins.
Oh, yeah.
I was just mentioning that today. I was like, that Corny Collins, man. He's something to that one.
Corny Collins has always been a fun role for them to cast.
Yeah.
And the films are even on stage, too, because James Marsden's really good in the 2007 musical, too.
So we don't have to talk about the first time, Brian.
So, I mean, this is a good segue. So where were you when you found out about this little John Waters movie that's being shot in your hometown?
Well, I'm trying to think of how it was shortly after the movie Tin Men, which, was a Barry Levinson movie.
Sure.
Who also filmed everything there. And and there was I had a little extra work in Tin Men at the end of the movie. So that's what kind of put me on the network to hear about things. And then when they were talking about Hairspray, I had grown up with this music. My grandmother had taught dance. She used to be a June Taylor dancer at one point in her life, and so she had this great record collection. And the parties that they would have, I just always felt something about this 60s dance music. And so when they talked about that they wanted kids to be able to do the dances, we had this lightning round dance instruction in my grandmother's basement with my mother and I, and went to this huge cattle call in downtown Baltimore. And I was all prepared to do these big extravagant dancers, and they didn't even give you time. They basically wanted to see if anyone could even really move to the beat at all.
Sure.
And it wasn't until it felt like 3 months later, I just assumed it just didn't go through.
And did you read about it in the paper that they were casting dancing background extras?
Maybe I did. Maybe I think it was in a trade paper, but then it took a long time to hear back, and then when they brought us in for a second go-round audition, that was the stuff, because the choreographer was Ed Love, who was the Solid Gold choreographer, and his assistant, Kiki. I'm sorry, I don't recall her last name, but it was a dance studio with mirrors all around the wall and all of us kids, and they just put on the music and started doing the dance, and it was like the elimination round with Motormouth Mabel. If you didn't pass muster, you would be tapped
on
out.
The shoulder,
and they would start showing you these steps. So they did that.
To Josh Lucas.
That's amazing.
So I felt like
Josh Charles.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they did that about 4 times, and then anyone who was left was in. So that was really, I mean, as a young kid, you were like on your, having to be on the ball with it.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But it was fun. I mean, that music, I just love that music, and I love the look of that time period. So when they would dress us like that, and then we had the music going, and the vintage cars were brought in and everything, it was like time travel for me.
That's so cool.
In this shot of spring of '87, I'm assuming?
Yeah. I guess it was spring, and then the auto show, I remember, was probably the beginning of summer, because it was the heat in the auto show. It was Baltimore humidity, full on summer heat. I mean, it must have been in the upper 90s at least.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story, an almost casualty of that heat later on.
So was probably the only time that Debbie Harry was around would have been at the auto show. Based on what you did.
That's the only time I saw
that you
her.
would have seen her.
And she was like this, it just, everyone else was very nice and approachable. But she, like, before she even hit, it was like this coolness, this smooth coolness. Like, you just knew this was a cool, you weren't sure if you should talk person or whatever. And so it was just like bug eyes watching from afar. Yeah. And I think, I'm going to admit this, I think I kind of freaked her out a little bit. And the reason is, I was always very interested in special effects and makeup.
Uh-huh.
And so when they were decking her out for her last scene,
the big explosion.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, when her giant wig with the bomb in it blows off prematurely off her head and goes flying across the room, they had a live gag rigged for that, but, they wanted to be able to show, like her head, like the hair burnt and her almost bald from the explosion.
Yeah.
And so they had to put that makeup on her. And I had only ever read movie magazines and books about how that sort of makeup was done. So they were doing it right next to where we were being held, waiting. So I was just staring like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I know, and also this was back before social media. So my first movies, I would take my big SLR camera with me and take pictures on the set. And, I'd take pictures of the crew and give it to them and everything. So anyway, I took pictures of her getting into that makeup or them applying the makeup. But she started to notice me watching her and started to like look away and everything. And it wasn't, I'm telling you now, Deborah, it wasn't because I was being googly fan per se. I was just very interested in the special effects.
We know you listen, Debbie. We know that you subscribe to the show.
She's one of our super fans. That's kind of amazing, though. Was she one of the ones that the kids were just like, oh, we were really excited to see? Because I mean,
yeah. But like I say, it was this kind of like you just weren't even sure how to handle it. She just oozed cool.
Oh my God!
Like at a certain more adult level than
yeah.
Divine was right in with the kids and laughing and really, but Deborah Harry, you were just like, oh my, this is too cool. I don't even know if I should walk over there. Sort of cool,
Yeah, because I can't imagine the kids were very much like, oh, I'm going to wait around so I could say hi to Jerry Stiller. Like,
Yeah.
But
now,
you hear
my
Debbie
wherewithal
Harry.
now would have like,
Oh my god,
done that.
Totally now. But I mean, but I feel like at the time, kids would be like, "Holy shit, fucking Blondie!"
Yeah, I actually
Blondie
probably,
is here.
if Ann Mirror, his wife, were
Right?
there, I think I would have had a little more recognition for that. I just, as a kid on my radar, that wasn't there yet.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Brian, you're also featured prominently in classroom scenes, too. How did you get pulled to be an extra sitting behind Tracy for those scenes?
That actually, I feel like that happened first.
Because you're in a big scene where they send Tracy to special ed for her hair, right?
Right. It's the first time, and this
Hair
actually,
detention.
I'll tell you about the deleted scene before this.
Ooh.
So when you see her in that classroom scene, and the geometry teacher, Rhea Fiken, who was like a mainstay on the Maryland Public Television.
Oh, cool.
So we're sitting behind her and we can't see past her big hair. And there's a deleted scene where she breaks into Amber's house and steals her hair bleach and bleaches her hair in her sink. And that then explains why she's all of a sudden got that hair like that.
I've always wondered that there would have had to have been a little scene that they would have cut in between.
Yeah,
those
there were some really interesting deleted scenes. The ending had a huge deleted scene, but I'll wait till we get to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just always kind of assumed it's one of those movie things where it's like, all right, you just get that she knows she's got this big audition, so she's going to make herself look as good as possible.
Yeah, and I wonder if, when you look at some of the deletions, the real Roach scene being one of them at Tilted Acres, I wonder if it was starting to make her come off as more of a bad girl than the hero that she was.
Sure.
So I wonder if that maybe has something to do
when
with
you
it.
say it, that does seem out of character for Tracy to like break into someone's home. Like, at that point, I mean, Amber was horrible to her.
Right, and I don't know the scripted setup of it, but maybe it was a little early to have her be badass with it. I don't know.
And I would think that Tracy would be resourceful enough to dye her hair blonde without having to break into Amber's home, too.
Yeah. All peroxided out.
Teenage Jezebel.
Some of the dialogue in this movie, especially
so
some
good.
of the things that Divine gets to say, are just amazing and just harken back to a bygone era.
And it's one of those things that my memory thinks that Divine's going more over the top, but what I think is so brilliant about this performance is that it is understated.
It is understated.
And she's playing this character very real.
Let me tell y'all also, the Baltimore accent, which is in so many John Waters movies, in itself seems over the top.
Sure.
But when you're in some of the neighborhoods where they film, it is there. And I try not to slip into it. But hon, like if I want to slip into it, it's very easy. I don't really.
Dawn Davenport's passing notes.
So we were watching a little bit of the 2007 Hairspray.
Yeah.
And John Travolta tries to do the Baltimore accent.
That was bizarre.
But
it's so weird.
But it just comes off like Cher.
Yeah.
Like, Tracy.
It's really strange. I don't know why, like someone, as an actor, someone could have said, a coach come over and be like, do this. But I don't know.
But he's trying for the Baltimore accent, and
my dot pulls are worn off.
It just slips into Cher. It's so weird.
I think my favorite instance of the Baltimore accent is the voiceover in Pink Flamingos done by John Waters. It's insane at the very beginning of that movie. I have a little bit of Divine talking to, or Edna Turnblad talking to Tracy and her best friend Penny Pingleton.
Okay, young ladies, I've just about enough of this screeching music.
Mother, we're watching the Cordy Collins show.
Penny, your mother called all frantic. She said you were punished.
I'm always punished.
And Tracy, I have told you about that hair, all ratted up like a teenage Jezebel.
Oh, Mother, you're so 50s.
Tracy's flamboyant flip is all the rage, Miss Edna. Jackie Kennedy, our first lady, even rats her hair.
But Tracy ain't no first lady. Are you, Tracy? No, sirree. She's a hair hopper. That's what she is. Now, I've got nothing but hampers of ironing to do, and my diet pill is wearing off. Tracy, I want you to go to your room and study. And Penny, Don't you be listening to every bit of nonsense that my daughter tells you.
Oscar-winning line delivery as far as I'm concerned. It's so good.
I love this. Your mother called all frantic.
So, a hair hopper. And when we were watching the commentary, John Waters talks about how that's an old Baltimore term for a woman that would do up her hair and tried to sort of pass herself off like being from the upper class, even though she was probably living in the not so great part of town.
Right. There's all sorts of nuance to Baltimore hair in that time period. There's the saying, the higher the hair, the closer to God. But educated eyes can spot a hair hopper, big hair, a mile off from a truly upper class high hair.
Yeah, that's true. The white lipstick, that's something that I never really understood. That's mentioned in Roseanne when they pull out pictures from their like high school days.
Oh yeah, well, like the girls who wound up being the tough girls were often the white lipstick.
I love a good bad girl in a John Waters movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Got a knife in my pocketbook. I'm gonna cut you up after class.
In my pocketbook. Pocketbook. That's another one that when I was a kid, I was like, what the fuck is a pocketbook? Divine's journey in this movie, Edna Turnblad, she just is in a house coat.
How they introduce the character and how and her style progression in the movie is really well done.
Yeah.
She's she's just like a laundress for like her neighbors. She just does, laundry for people in the building or on the block or whatever. But then ultimately she becomes like Tracy's manager. It's interesting because at first she's just like, you're a hair hopper, turn off that music, that racket. But they're very particular when like one of her customers is over and she talks about the kids listening to that type of music. She does kind of defend Tracy and the kids. She's just like, oh, they're just teenagers.
Well, to your point also about when she starts to become Tracy's manager, when you were asking about what those real dancer celebrities would have been like. I mean, this is also kind of like Dance Moms before.
Oh, sure.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, the stage parent.
The momager.
Yeah, but, so Edna, while she's kind of wants... she wants what's best for Tracy, but on the other hand, when people get a little too, intense with their like subtle racism or anything, she's quick to kind of say like, well, they're just teenagers, just let them listen to music, whatever. Because once Tracy does get on the show and people start calling and
she takes to it pretty quick.
She does. She takes it pretty quick, and she's it only takes her a little bit of nudging to get her hair done. But I love that she's just like, the beauty shop? What? Like she would never go into a beauty shop, but I guess she was just setting that hair at home.
Yeah, and that street that had the hefty hideaway, it was really Pacey's department store. Like all of those things looked exactly like that at the time of filming. They had to change nothing but the name on the sign, and for a long time after
it. Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, Penny and Tracy kind of, I don't know if they ditch class, but they hear that there is going to be an opening on the Corny Collins show. So they go to the auditions, and the kids are kind of mean to all of the girls that are auditioning, but especially to Tracy because she's the bigger girl. She's a trash can.
I love whenever Amber just mouths whore. Whore.
Whore. Yeah. She's adopted.
Yeah, whenever you just want to spread a nasty rumor about someone, I love that, just saying that they're adopted.
Yeah. But yeah, they go the audition, and Tracy she shows like this poise in front of the fake cameras. She's also a really good dancer, as she demonstrates at the Corny Collins record hop,
the VFW hall.
Yeah. So that's like a dance that wasn't televised, like in the movie, right? That dance, it was like a record hop, they called it.
I took it that they were sampling new music from the record company.
Yeah, because the show was the show, but that was at the VFW.
So that was like like the Buddy Dean when he would go around and actually have the record hops and everything like that. Yeah.
Okay, so that was just a dance that anybody could go to.
Right.
Okay. Except,
right,
not anybody could go to it.
Right.
They were segregated.
Right.
So she shows at this record hop that she just kind of jumps in there and does the Madison with everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't like line dances. First of all, the Madison doesn't seem too hard. The Madison itself, but then when he starts saying all those things and throwing it in there,
that's the thing. You have the basic step.
Yeah.
And then
aren't you stepping into like an M formation?
Yeah. One of them, he says.
Yeah, but you know, if you watch it and if you look on YouTube at some of the original Madison dances, it's upper body cool. So you throw attitude when you're tracing the M, it is attitude in each direction that the M goes.
Yeah,
you know, and so but you do have the caller who calls the different moves to go into, and I guess I'll take this time to just say, you know, one of my disappointments with the movie is that all of the dances were always done to their entirety, and they're very trimmed for the movie.
Sure.
And we danced our ass off.
Oh, my God.
However, in the case of the Madison, there's the one, it's the Jackie Gleason step.
Yeah.
And that threw everybody off. It was very hard to recover from because you do the famous Jackie Gleason and away we go.
Yeah.
And we could never come back out of that step. So there's there's an edit in that movie that recovers for us because we just could never. We did everything else, but it's a fun dance and there's lots of neat variations.
Yeah, because when he says like Jackie Gleason, I was like, "What's the Jackie?" And then I see everybody kind of do. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's the like, you know, the line or whatever."
And away we go.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that one. I feel like I would just get all jumbled if I had to do that.
Yeah.
Especially on camera. But yeah, Tracy jumps right in there and, you know, Ricky Lake is selling it.
This is what really showcases why they cast Ricky Lake in this movie.
Yeah.
And John Waters was saying on the commentary that it was easy to cast a bigger girl that could act, but could she dance though?
Yeah.
Right.
And Ricky could do it all. He said that they had no backups. It was Ricky Lake or no one.
Interesting. Yeah.
So after she does really well at the record hop, she goes to the audition, nails the audition, gets invited to be on the council, and is on TV like that day. For like, Penny runs home.
Can I just say something quickly about the record hop? You know, again, since we were all kids in this movie that was a period piece, a lot of these things introduced things to me for the first time. Ruth Brown as Motormouth Mabel in that record.
So good.
I had no idea of her actual singing past until later. And when I found out, she is something to look up.
Okay.
She is really worth looking up, Ruth Brown in the 60s. And so it makes me appreciate even more that she was taking part in this movie doing that.
Yeah, because she gets kind of higher billing. They drop her name in the trailer. She's like, you know, when they in the credits and stuff, she's up there. So I always assumed that she must be you know.
Yeah, and she's good. She's got some good stuff.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
They made her wear that. They made her wear that blonde wig, that blonde hard front wig.
Yeah, it's not the best blonde wig, and Queen Latifah got the better end of that deal because Queen Latifah looks a lot more glamorous in the 2007 musical version. She's got like these beautiful lace front wigs and like this awesome wardrobe, but these dresses that they put on Ruth Brown.
John Waters says that he made her cry in her trailer because she didn't want to wear any of the wigs or dresses that they gave her.
I mean, the wardrobe's crazy.
Yeah,
like Motormouth Maybell's clothes are nuts,
right?
And they're not flattering on her.
And it's interesting you say that though, because you know, again, as someone who lived through the '60s as a singer, and wore a lot of crazy stuff, she probably had a real awareness on what worked with her and everything.
Yeah,
so that's an interesting thing. Yeah. I also wanted to just say real fast on that record hop, when Town Without Pity came on.
Oh yeah,
John Waters was very specific with all of us that this was the makeout song, and that this was the sort of time. This was the time in a record hop that everyone waited for because the lights went down, and this is as close as you could get to sex, is the make out on the dance floor. And he wanted us to take it very seriously. And he said, if anybody laughs, we're going to cut you out of the movie. So we were very serious about it. And the girl that I was paired off with had these big, round, clip-on earrings. And so when we were in the camera was weaving in and out of the crowd. So they were getting a good shot of everybody, not knowing what they were going to use. But as I was nuzzling her, my nose unclipped her earring.
Oh, no.
Just as the camera was going by. And, I was so scared that they were going to cut us out because, like she's laughing in my shoulder, but she wasn't facing it. So it was just a funny moment. But the bigger point being that he really stressed the whole make-out portion of the
They would never
pop.
show that on TV, too.
Well,
These, make-out dances.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's serious about showing that off because there's a big make-out dance scene in Crybaby as well. And those actors are licking each other's
They're really going at it.
In that. But it's just part of that aesthetic. It's just part of the crazy John Waters world.
Right.
Like, he's just going to show these
and
teenagers.
also showing you, that the teenage hormones and everything, regardless of the time period, are still looking for that. They're still looking for that outlet,
Yeah. When Amber drives home and Link is in the car with her and he jumps on her and starts making out and she pushes him off because I happen to have a blemish. He gets out of the car and he's frantically adjusting his pants.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's those, first of all, those pants are tight as hell, that period of clothing. And so it's all right, he's got this boner and he's just fully readjusting himself in the middle of the street. I love that. And also Amber's car is amazing.
Yeah.
First of all.
It sure is.
Yeah, I didn't even take the time to figure out what it was, but that car was crazy.
Is it a red Corvette? Maybe?
It's red, yeah, and it's probably a Corvette, yeah. The seats, it's a two-seater, and it's just oh my God, it's so cool. I just love how... Oh, well, her father does something with cars, right? Because the auto show, is he involved somehow? Because I'm how is he affording this car for?
Does he own a car dealership?
Well, I know that. Well, they run the amusement park.
Oh, they run the amusement park.
Sure.
There you go.
Right.
I guess that Sonny Bono was
Tilted
running
Acres.
for mayor of Palm Springs at the time they were making this movie. And Sonny Bono was pretty familiar with John Waters' work. So when he would read the script, he'd be like, so what else is in this movie? It's what are you not showing?
What are you leading up to?
Well,
What
he
do you-
probably just got his sides and was okay, so when does Divine eat the dog shit in this movie? Because that was so I mean, that was what was legendary about John Waters. When you started to read up about it, and when I asked my sister, what is this movie? What's going on? And she was just this director is just this underground punk rock
He's
movie
so
director.
cool.
Yeah, and Divine, and I'm who's Divine? And she telling me about this drag queen. I'm just that's a man,
Right. Which probably, going to what you said, Scott, earlier about the film making its budget but not being a huge success at the first time, it was a big jump to expect audiences to make from the knowledge of eating shit in one movie to this movie. So, it's probably lucky that it even did what it did.
Yeah. Because what was the last thing that John Waters had done? Polyester?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even that, while still a little bit more tame, that's still pretty subversive.
Yeah.
When you really get down to it.
Now, he didn't do that Western movie with Divine and Tap Hunter.
No, he
That's
did
someone
not.
else?
Yeah.
That's someone else.
Lust in the Dust.
Yeah.
With Divine Tap Hunter and the amazing
Lainey Kazan.
Yeah.
I would always see the box for Lust in the Dust at the video store.
What the fuck is this movie?
What is this? And I never rented it. And I feel like I need to see it.
So we just got the new Criterion of Polyester, and I hadn't seen it in a few years, and I forgot. I kind of underestimate how crazy that movie is. It's in my mind, I don't remember it being as crazy as it was, and then I revisit it, and it's
There's the Baltimore foot stomper.
There's the Baltimore foot stomper. There's the woman biting the tire.
Yeah.
It comes with the smell-o-vision card, and Scott's like, so let's do the smell-o-vision card. And I was like, no, don't scratch it. It'll like run. The scent will run out. We've got to preserve that scent forever.
It's funny that you talk about the Baltimore Foot Stomper. The last song in Hairspray during the credit roll is Foot Stompin'.
I caught that when we watched it the other night. I was like, is this where the Baltimore Foot Stomper came from? It probably was. So, Tracy does eventually make it on to the council. I just wanted to play this. It's really funny.
Miss Edna! Penny Pinkleton, you'll wake the dead. Tracy's not home yet. Plus, your mother called, and she's on the warpath.
I know, Miss Edna. Can I come in? There's something you both gotta see.
Well, yeah, come on up. But I've got ironing, and Wilbur's working.
Mr. Turnblad!
It's not war with Cuba, is it? Or more Negro problems?
No, you'll see.
Did poor Debbie Reynolds have a nervous breakdown? This better be good. Broad daylight, and I'm sitting in front of a TV. I've seen the Corny Collins show. Thank you, Penny.
Just watch.
I just lost a $2.69 silly putty sale. This better be worth it.
Wait, you'll see. Just watch.
Broad daylight, sitting in front of the TV.
I'm going to say that next time I'm trying to catch up on Netflix shows.
Yeah, I also like. There's a little bit of the Corny Collins show that gets that interrupts that little bit, but when they do finally see her on screen and Divine's as big as a house.
Yes. I love how Divine is introduced in that scene, hanging out of the window.
Yes.
Penny Pinkleton, you'll wake the dead.
I love that image.
Yeah, but that was a very row house thing, like being on the porches, hanging out the windows, having full conversations, one person in the house, one person in the street. That I grew up with that.
And the mural that's on the side of the building too. Were there stuff like that in Baltimore?
Oh,
that you remember?
Yeah.
And also a good old fashioned joke shop that her dad runs. You don't see joke shops anymore.
But that to me is very John Waters. That the dad runs a joke shop and he uses like itching powder, like at the end of the movie. Like, what is itching powder? It's just like powdered asbestos that he's like pouring on these people.
I don't know. It was in the back of comic books all growing up,
right?
Up into the 80s, you could that and the X-ray glasses sees through clothes.
Yeah, I remember even like being a young kid and seeing those comic book ads for like build a rocket at home out of like household appliances and well, of course, sea monkeys. But sea monkeys you could get at like a toy store. But some of the things was like, do you remember like seeing some and it would be like a real monkey?
Oh yeah,
like in a comic book.
That was a popular.
But what did you get? You wouldn't get a monkey. Would they just take your money? And 6 to 8 weeks later, you get like a dead monkey. Like, how do they send you a monkey? Because I also remember they would be like $10 or something, or maybe it was
that's like something you'd see out of The Simpsons or something.
No, it's true, and that's where they got it from. Like, I'm gonna find an comic book with an ad for a real monkey.
Monkeys, ducks, and alligators were very popular pets for a while.
Right? Yeah,
like a little spider monkey with the long tails.
Yeah, I think it was just like a little like tree monkey that you could get out of a comic book. I'll find an ad. You'll believe me. So Edna becomes Tracy's manager and takes her down to the Hefty Hideaway to get an endorsement deal.
Because these teens would do commercials. Were they on air for like a specific product? That they would just take a commercial break and they would just have the teen be pushing like I don't know.
Oh, yeah, because a lot of the TV shows back then would do that. You know, the camera literally would move to one side of the room, and there would be a little thing to endorse or talk about.
Yeah.
An archivist friend of mine has very, very early color tape of Dinah Shore's first TV show, and some of the commercials they would do within the context of the show were amazing, really.
Yeah.
But, it was very interesting. And that was like in the late 50s.
I love the Hefty Hideaway and the, I forget the character's name, but the man who
Mr.
works
Pinky.
there. Mr. Pinky.
Yeah.
Just
really good. His whole little jingle and everything, he's very good.
And he's got like the comb over hair.
Yeah.
And like
I think that he became like a John Waters staple too. I think that he's in most of his movies after this.
Yeah, I think he's in a couple. I think he's definitely in Crybaby. And he's got like a table full of like donuts and pastries, like for the ladies,
and funhouse mirrors so that they all look thinner. Did you notice?
I didn't.
We didn't notice that.
They're all funhouse mirrors.
I like Edna's like negotiating skills, and she's like throw in some petty pants, and I'm like, petty pants? What are those?
See, now this is the scene in particular that when I watched the John Waters scene or the John Travolta scene from 2007, and then I watched this scene, it's like night and day of which one's better. Just Divine's line delivery of when she's like making this like business transaction is so good.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, John Travolta's just that performance is off the wall. It's just bananas. Mm-hmm. So it's like not even in the same like room as this, but they immediately go and like get makeovers. Mrs. Turnblad, Edna, like gets her hair done.
Yeah.
She gets
welcome to the 60s.
Welcome to the 60s, Mom. Yeah, and then that becomes a song in the musical. She gets the big soup can curls.
Yeah,
like, and it's just a giant pile on top of her head. I love that. And yeah, Tracy's like a full blown member of the council. But then pretty soon she gets. She meets Seaweed because she gets in hair detention at school. She gets in trouble.
As Brian would know, because he was there.
That's true.
He was there when she was sent to hair detention.
I do have to say, in the scene where she gets hair detention...
The principal's office?
Yeah. Well, that...
The other kid...
The other kid that gets smacked, like, really hard by that woman.
What's that for?
Those were the days.
She, like, hits her with a purse.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope that
just
person has a buckle or, like,
smacking kids.
I just find it... I have to say, I get really impressed with these people that you've never seen again. Like that little girl. Ow, Mom, what's that for? Like, they're so funny.
Yeah, it's really funny. And again, that's just that crazy John Waters. That was me as a kid going, oh my God, what the hell? But what I was going to say was, I don't feel like Tracy's hair is that much bigger than some of the other girls in the class. Because some of them have like high ponytails or will have like a little, like a beehive kind of a thing. And Tracy's hair is tall, but it's not that tall.
I think she was being punished because she's the big girl that has
but
the
it's
big
also
hair.
It's flipped and peroxided. It crossed the line.
This is true. And it's ratted. I mean, the girls that have ponytails are just kind of pinned up, and her hair is ratted, which, I mean, ratted just means teased, right? It's like they said rat your hair.
Yeah.
Teased and then back combed, sort of.
Yeah, you tease it down and then back comb it to get the height on it. And so when she goes, first she gets hair detention, then she gets switched homeroom into the special ed, and it's like we don't even call it special education anymore. Like, it's so
PC culture has taken over, and you can't say special ed.
Well, the thing was, what like John Waters was saying, and even like Tracy was saying, is like they would just put the black kids in there to hold them back. You know, it's like it wasn't even special ed; it was just like. You know,
I love the reveal of how out of control the special ed class is when we're first introduced to it.
Just kids going nuts in there. Yeah. Until the teacher walks in. I mean, the teacher's not in the room, so it's like...
What's the teacher's name?
It's crazy.
It's something crazy. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, but this is where she meets Seaweed, who is Motormouth Maybell's son?
Yes.
And they start dancing in class.
Yes, and I think if you look closely for something that the trailer talked about, you know, wilder than Grease, the dance that they do a little hand jive.
Yes, they do.
Yep.
When they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and they also do because the teacher is looking at the flag.
Yeah.
So with her back turned, they all start to do the hand jive. I did kind of catch that in the trailer when he's like wilder than Grease. It's Hairspray. That's kind of funny that they're like, okay, let's capitalize on this 10-year-old movie at this point. So we meet Seaweed, and of course Tracy is fine to make friends with him. Like, none of the other kids would probably dare to make friends with, you know, a black kid in the special ed class, but Tracy doesn't care. He's a good dancer. So she's gonna become friends with him. The dodgeball scene is insane.
So this is a lot more intense than I remember dodgeball. I don't remember like a circle.
Oh, now see,
like a sudden death circle.
This is where I think it must be a generational thing. As the picked on fat kid in school, dodgeball, that was where they got you. And so the unathletic person, speaking as one of them, suddenly became athletic because the last thing you wanted to do was get hit by that friggin' dodgeball because it hurt.
It stung.
It stung. It left a red mark and it made a special ping when it hit
that
you.
noise.
Yeah.
Did you have like the red bouncy? Like those balls? Yeah. We all had those.
But I just remember just the gym being sectioned off, and that's how we would play dodgeball.
So like the movie dodgeball, where you're facing each other and there's a line down the middle. See, I had it in my elementary school where it was a circle.
Yeah.
And you were in the middle.
It was like Lord of the Flies.
It
was like Lord of the Flies.
That's even worse.
That's terrible.
I love what the girls are wearing in this scene of their gym outfits.
They're like it's like a little pinafore. Mm-hmm. It's like a red pinafore over like a white, like
right. Oh yeah, when
Oxford
they
shirt,
all
like a
march
Peter
out
Pan card.
and like
it's definitely not the gym outfits that they had on in Carrie.
Yeah.
Right.
Now is Penny's not in the special ed class?
No,
she's there, but I think she's just in regular. Because it's like the other kids.
Right. They see the special ed class coming out.
Yeah.
And
I love how
laughing.
awful the gym teacher is when they see the special ed class come out.
Right.
That even the gym teacher's laughing at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all going to laugh at you.
Come on, let's play dodgeball. That gym teacher's amazing. This is special ed. But Amber beans Tracy in the face with the dodgeball, and this is like Link's last straw. This is when he's like, fuck off, you're just being too mean. And he's already kind of shown interest in Tracy from like the show.
Right.
So from here, they go with Link to Maybelle's record store, which this scene is amazing because that record store is like super teeny and they're having a little dance.
I mean, it looks like a real record store that they shot in.
Does.
Yeah.
Do you know where the record store is?
I don't know where it is, but there were things like that all over.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of a downtown blue collar city thing.
Yeah. The some of the stuff with Penny's mom when she gets to like the black neighborhood and is just
follow that car,
petrified, and like all the black people are just laughing at her. It's so funny. She plays that really well. That character's really funny.
She's very funny. Voodoo woman.
Yeah.
Penny's mom is always a fun character whenever they cast it on stage. Jackie Hoffman, I believe, played that role first on Broadway.
That would have been fun to see. I have to say, I did see this with... I saw it at the Pantages here in L.A., and I did not see Harvey Fierstein, but it was Bruce Valanche.
Even better.
As Edna, which was interesting.
How is Bruce at singing? Well, also, because Harvey Fierstein...
exactly.
is not that great of a singer.
Does he have to be better than Harvey?
So
I think he just talk sang most of it.
Yeah.
And he actually broke once or twice and just made some jokes to the audience that were like topical.
That's very Bruce.
Yeah, I think he made like a political joke in the middle of it, but it was like about like George W. Bush.
Huh.
That was weird. But I think somebody flubbed something and then he just kind of threw it in there, and it was like people laughed. People laughed. People laughed, but it was very much like I was like, all right, come on, Bruce. It was very Valanche, I have to say. I don't really remember who else was in that performance because it was like 15 years ago. But yeah, this is Tracy and Link are fully just like a couple now at this point, right?
And then the Motormouth's record store is also where you get to meet her daughter.
Little Inez.
Yeah.
That's a really good character. In Penny and Link, Penny and Seaweed begin like their romance. A checkerboard chick.
Yeah,
I love that.
Kind of
salt and pepper.
What I think is really interesting when you go back and rewatch this movie now, just because we're a little more conscious as a 2020 audience of like white savior movies.
Yeah.
But I would not describe Tracy as a white savior in this movie. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think because she's very...
It's kind of everything is just sort of happening, and she just and she's just there.
Yeah.
Well, I think, again, John Waters and Divine grew up in this era
yes.
as school students. And so, there were people who were always, against bigotry or like kids who couldn't understand like why bother with it. I remember my mom talking about her school days. Now, Baltimore also had a big Jewish community. She was in high school with Barry Levinson and Cass Elliot.
Oh, wow.
And but she talked about a lot of her friends who were Jewish and watching them get also, terrible harassment and everything. And, all of her record collection was the sort of thing that would be playing in Motormouth Mabel's store. So I think, at a certain point, you also have to acknowledge that, especially in this time period, there's that kind of branching off of people who do, if they don't outright champion the cause, they just don't get the bigotry.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it just wasn't part of them. And so there was a sort of bridging, a transition for some people.
Yeah. And also, too, I feel like critiquing subject matter like this and calling it like a white savior movie is a little bit more of a modern concept.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, I don't even think that would have been on anybody's radar.
No, not
to
at
say
all.
Like, oh, well, the intentions are in the wrong place or whatever. But I think it takes a lot of times it takes younger people who are just kind of familiar with this culture, and they're a lot more open to, especially because of like the music and all of that. They're the kind of kids that we're like, we'll listen to the music, but we won't like the people. But there's also the people that are like Tracy and Penny. We have to get to first there's the dance, right, that they go to. That's a
Motormouth
dance.
Yeah.
And that just seems more fun than the Buddy Teen.
But it also shows you, because it kind of goes along with what happens later to the ending that didn't get shown. But when you see the black dancers having a more, that their dances, were very specifically choreographed with the more, sensual take, and and probably with the accuracy of the time. You know, these period dances, they were very careful to really show them as they should be, but you can see how it's more like a kind of get down groove. Yeah. And then I think even when Motormouth introduces Toussaint McCaw, he was a real singer also, know. So you're getting a lot of actual real history going with this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I think people forget a lot about this movie, is that it's like, it's a lot more than just kind of this lighthearted, like funny, like look at their hair and like the crazy dances that they're doing. But it's like there's some social commentary.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not just like the nerds against like the weirdos, which is usually kind of like
that you saw a lot in 80s movies.
Yeah, yeah. Or even like just other John Waters movies that are just like kind of gross out for the sake of like, being perverse or whatever. Like I know that like in I think it's Multiple Maniacs, there's a lot of John Waters has certain opinions about, like the Manson family.
Oh, right.
And they talk about like the Manson family. Like I think it was before they knew who did it in Multiple Maniacs, and they talk about like Sharon Tate and things, and you're just like, is this bad taste? Like, should we not be talking about this? And he's kind of like become friends with like Squeaky Fromme, like in jail and stuff. And you're just like, John Waters, what are you doing? But it's just part of that whole, like, as an outsider filmmaker and just an outsider in life, I feel like if you were a gay person, growing up in the time that he did, there's a lot more of, that outsider mentality that kind of sticks with you. Like right now it's like, oh yeah, I'm an outsider, but there's the acceptance level by general society is so much greater. Right. And, somebody like John Waters lived in a time when it was like he was out and being himself and doing these crazy movies and all that at a time when people were just like, no, you're a weirdo, you're a freak.
Right. And the whole like what they would call back then the counterculture.
Yes.
Like, well, they run into the beatniks later, shortly after the Motor Mouth's dance, and those were your outlets, to go to the counterculture dances or hangouts, and then there was an element of danger, like could you were you going to get into trouble, or what were they going to do, and yet everyone is seeking their own. Yeah,
and that is interesting. I totally forgot about the beatniks, but that's like a this key scene in the movie, because you think like Tracy and Link and all of them, they're the popular kids, but really to like kids a little older than them, they're kind of just like these bubblegum teenagers. But like the real cool kids now are the beatniks, and they're just like iron your hair.
Well, and like I said, though, with that element of danger, because they might do drugs or something. They might smoke pot.
I love how Ricky Lake plays that scene when she figures out that they're going to be smoking pot.
Right.
Well, yeah, Link is like, don't breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's funny also because it shows you that moment in time when you are becoming the rebellious teenager.
Yeah.
But you still haven't had your eyes open to like what real street smart or streetwise, counterculture is. And so even to them, there's like reached a point of, maybe we shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, for sure.
And in classic John Waters casting of how he cast the beatniks,
yes,
that's very specific and something that you always see show up in John Waters movies.
Yeah, I feel like Rick Ocasek is a big get. And I mean, Pia Zadora.
Do you remember when we were last talking about her that we were trying to find who from our parents' generation would be their Jessica Simpson? And didn't you mention her?
And I said Pia Zadora.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like she... Correct me if I'm wrong, but she just seemed like she was more of a socialite and just was trying to find something to latch onto and tried her hand at like acting and singing.
And they would,
pop songs and disco songs.
Although she's very funny in this.
She is very funny. Yeah. She is very funny in this. But she never quite got something that like latched onto that made her a big deal.
Right.
But she was kind of in things, she would be on The Love Boat or, just random movies and TV shows and had like a disco song and all of that. But she never quite like broke in a major way, but just kind of became a personality of like the 70s and 80s, right? She is headlining a residency in Las Vegas these days.
Do you know where it is?
It's in a dinner theater off the Strip. But it's like an Italian restaurant. But her Instagram looks amazing. And I kind of want to see this Pia Zadora review. She still looks great. She's also in Santa Claus versus the Martians.
That's right.
A small child, right?
That's right.
Which is interesting. But yeah, she's
very well used in this movie.
She is. She's got quite the resume. But that's again just one of those like stunt casting kind of moments that John Waters is famous for. Bringing in people like Joey Heatherton and famously bringing in. Speaking of the Manson family, but bringing in Patty Hearst.
Patty Hearst. She's in numerous John Waters movies. Yeah, she's in Cecil B. Demented and then Serial Mom.
And she's in Crybaby.
Yep.
She kind of became the part of like his dreamland, repertoire along with Tracy Lords, So it's just that weird eye for casting and bringing in these kooky people that populate these movies. It's kind of genius. Rick Ocasek is funny, but it's in a similar role in Crybaby is Iggy Pop, as like the kooky grandpa, like washing himself in like a wash tub, like in the middle of.
Who is their big musician get for A Dirty Shame? Was it Chris Isaac?
Chris Isaac. Yeah. I remember A Dirty Shame being funnier. actually haven't seen it in a while.
I don't think I've ever seen a Dirty
Shame. It's hard to get a hold of. But it's good. It's cute. It's cute. We have to keep powering through this, man, because we got to get to Tilted Acres, and then is it called Tilted Acres?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I'm making that up every time. We got to get to Tilted Acres, and then to the auto show, right?
Right.
Should we just talk about the amusement park?
Of course.
Then, so you were talking about what is this?
Well, the Tilted Acres is the Hairspray version of an amusement park that was in Baltimore called Gwyn Oaks Amusement Park.
Okay.
And when I was really little, we would go there. I mean, first of all, those traditional city amusement parks, that's kind of a thing of the past too. But I remember just loving it, and I remember we seemed to stop going to it, and all I was told is that it was kind of dangerous. Things had changed there, and we couldn't go anymore. And so, I never knew the reasons why. I didn't know anything about at that point, like certain areas having racial tensions or this, that, and the other. So anyway, so Tilted Acres is supposed to be Gwyn Oaks Amusement Park in Baltimore, and it was filmed at Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And Dorney Park is an amusement park of the day that still is around, and when other amusement parks shut down throughout the country, they acquire their rides through the years and everything. There's a movie with Stella Stevens and Rosalind Russell called Where Angels Go, Trouble Follows, and they filmed there. And Susan St. James, when she was a really young girl, is in this movie too. It's the beginning of a road trip as this stuffy Mother Superior, and then the novice, hip and with it nun take the, But anyway, they filmed at Dorney Park too, so that's probably one of many other movies that have been filmed there, because it still looks like a 50s, 60s amusement park, the rides and everything.
Susan St. James from Kate and Alley.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing that it's just like, I mean, we have nothing like that here.
Yeah.
We had Santa's Village in the San Bernardino Mountains that looked like a photograph of like the early 70s for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
But that eventually closed down.
You didn't get anything like this in my rural community. And also, there was like snow 7 months out of the year.
Sure. Santa's Village in the San Bernardino Mountains had a commercial that ran all in the 80s that was very famous in Los Angeles, and now it always said, "Now you can see Santa in the summertime," because it was a year-round Santa themed.
Now I feel like it's really expensive to go.
Well, they closed it, and then it was abandoned and derelict for quite a few years, and then they reopened it, but it was like privately opened, and it's a whole thing.
And it's like $50 to go now.
Yeah, we'll have to read up. I feel like when it reopened, I was like, we got to go to the Santa's Village, and then we went. And we're like, womp womp. It's like crazy expensive. Side note: I found a advertisement for a darling pet monkey for $18.95 in a comic book. I'll put that on the Instagram. It's tiny, fits in the palm of your hand. Free cage, free leather collar and leash, free toy and instructions included with each monkey. Loads of fun and amusement. It's a squirrel monkey.
We'll get one to hang out with our interns.
Sorry about that little side note. But were there ever race wars at the real
at Gwyn Oaks? Apparently there was.
Wow.
And apparently those reasons were why we stopped.
Oh, sure. That's why
little.
You can. Yeah.
But it's interesting that the Tilted Acres scene also has one of the more famous deleted scenes in there. Where they filmed roaches literally crawling out of Tracy's hair.
Oh my god!
Oh, I was reading up about that whole comment.
So what was the idea behind the scene? Did Amber put them there?
So the scene is sort of based on an urban legend about a girl whose brain is eaten by cockroaches when they were living in her beehive hairdo.
Oh my god!
And it never made it into the final cut.
Although Amber's reaction
for that
is
scene,
still there.
Sure,
but yeah,
because she says
but it's
stage.
references to the roaches in the later part of the
right.
movie.
You just think that Amber's being a bitch.
I mean, that particular urban legend aside, they did used to say that because some of the people with those hairstyles back then wouldn't wash their hair for a while.
You'd wrap it in teepee.
So,
Yeah, to maybe keep its shape, but they also weren't washing it for a while, and so people used to say that, bugs may or may not.
Yeah, see, that couldn't have been left in there, because then if you see Tracy with roaches in her hair and they weren't put there by Amber or someone,
right? She's not the clean teen that Edna.
No,
claims.
We don't want that. She's our hero. We can't see real roaches growing out of her hair, but it does lead to her amazing coronation gown.
Right
later on in the movie,
it's pretty iconic.
Right? Yes, indeed. But it's at this point that she kind of ditches the bouffant anyway. Well, she ends up...
because she winds up ironing her hair in reform school.
Reform school. Yeah. I love the idea of reform school, too.
Yeah, that was a big thing back then. Yeah. I mean, even when I was growing up, there was the threat of going to reform school.
When you're a bad kid, you'll be thrown in reform school.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a couple of them here... but it was just like the school for the real bad kids that just continually got kicked out of school. And it was just a continuation school. To me, the threat wasn't so much like you're going to go to reform school, like they were going to do anything. It's not like military school. But to me, the threat was like, those are some bad mofos in that school. Like whatever they did to get there,
right?
That was like going to jail, for a kid.
So that was more of your threat.
Yeah,
is who you'd be with.
Kids,
you burn down your house and you're sent to reform.
Yeah. So to me, I'm just like, oh my god, I can't go there. Like those kids are going to eat me alive. I was not tough enough for reform school.
If I ever became a parent, I would threaten my kids with saying I'm going to send them to reform school.
Yeah, not military school. Swiss boarding school.
Then you'd have to make them look it up.
Yeah, they'd have to.
I feel like I did do a
Google it.
What does that mean?
I did do a Google search of Swiss reform or Swiss boarding school, and the results were pretty underwhelming.
There's not that many left, huh? We don't have that kind of money to send them to Swiss boarding school anyway. We're not Joan Crawford. Well, she didn't send Christina to Switzerland. She just sent her to...
That school's up the road.
It is. She just sent her to Sacred Heart. But at that time, I think it was for troubled girls. So, why does Tracy end up in reform school? Because, do they get caught by the police when they're out with, after the beatniks? How does she get in reform school?
Well, the big Tilted Acres debacle.
Oh, it's because of Tilted Acres.
Right.
And she gets because of Tilted Acres.
And she gets
put in the paddy wagon.
Right.
Put in jail for the night.
Yes. Shouldn't say paddy wagon. It's racist. Against Irish people.
They would probably say it in a John Waters movie.
I know. Yeah, that's right. I completely blanked on that. There's the race riots begin at Tilted Acres. Yeah. Well, that one woman throws a cherry
bomb woman
into the crowd,
and she's also the one who hits Link in the knees, right?
Yes.
With a purse.
That woman looks like just an extra. She just looks like some woman on the street. You're like, that's my cousin.
No, I was just gonna say, in the tough areas of Baltimore, that woman is everywhere.
Yeah,
she looks
like a real woman.
Yeah,
she looked like a real one. She didn't look like she had hair and makeup done. She just looked like you look like the kind of lady that would throw a cherry bomb in a public place.
And that's part of why I really love this movie is that there's something wonderfully authentic about all of the background actors in this movie, Brian included, that this is a world that feels very lived in by real people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't get that in a lot of Hollywood movies.
Yeah. No.
Well, this is the time, I guess, to say also, we were very lucky because if it had been a bigger film by a more established filmmaker coming into town to make a movie, the amount of things that he allowed us to do as dancers and reactors and in those different scenes, they would have brought in people to do that.
Definitely.
Like we were the dancers of the movie, and they danced us to death and got us to do really cool stuff. The stuff that was going on when Debbie's wig flew off and just all sorts of things. As little, kids in Baltimore, that would have been people brought in to do that for a bigger film.
Sure.
So I feel very lucky in that way.
Well, and also this movie was produced by New Line. And New Line in the 80s was like the misfit studio run by Bob Shaye. And Bob Shaye distributed early John Waters movies. I'm pretty sure that he would like drive multiple Maniacs and Pink Flamingos to like movie houses to show them. So they had a pretty long working relationship.
Yeah.
And probably when they made this movie, he was just like, John, go do your thing.
Yeah.
Here's the little money that we're going to give you from New Line.
Yeah, this is a non-Freddy like New Line movie. I do love this scene in that when Tracy's in reform school and she's ironing her hair and the news report comes on.
Right.
She sees Link on TV. She starts licking the screen.
But not only that, this is something also that is kind of a mainstay in John Waters films. They do great practical effects.
Yes.
And I'm sorry the name is escaping me right now, but he's used the same people to build his props and things for a long time.
Well,
I'm just having a brain fart on the name.
Vincent Perenio is his set director,
That's right.
Or his art director.
Yeah. And so some of the things they would build and the experimental ways that they would do it, like, obviously having the camera within a TV cabinet to get her licking the screen.
Yeah.
When they're having a make-out moment after Motormouth's dance outside and a rat crawls over her foot with the moon and reflected. And so they had some sort of like globe lit to be the moon reflecting in the puddle that the rat was on, and they did really amazing practical props. And then when you get to the auto show, one of the most amazing ones rolls out. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, when Tracy gets
the applausometer,
the applausometer is great.
Oh, yeah.
When Tracy gets beamed with the dodgeball. And Link is looking over her, and it has that like waterfall effect on Link. Those kinds of practical effects. Also, even too, there's like some really cool like wipes.
Yeah,
like there's really cool like optical wipes, and they just make it look like a -- movie because these are all like in camera process shots.
And that's another good point. Also, there's so many movies, and I think it wasn't too long after Hairspray that they came out with. It was another dance movie, and it just...
Shag,
I think. But, so many period movies just look like you put vintage clothes on people and said go. And it doesn't look like it came for that time. And this really does.
It really does. Yeah, something about the film grain and the things they did with the opticals and all the practical
and also,
stuff.
if you were to colorize one of the sound stage sets where they would do these dance shows, just how the colors look, I'm sure look exactly like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And lighting. Lighting is a big thing. Yeah. Like I remember when I saw Far From Heaven, I think, and they were talking about, it's like all those old 50s melodramas. And I was like, this is the same, like smoke-filled everywhere, dark lighting things. That's never how a 50s movie was lit, ever.
I mean, that's a 50s movie through the minds of Todd Haynes.
Yeah. But yeah, that whole opening credits sequence that's in the dance studio of the Corny Collins show.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. It just looks like a real, because like I said about the shots of the streets of Baltimore, they didn't pretty it up, and so they didn't pretty up like, the interior stuff. We're in a glossy movie now. Like, we keep bringing it back to the musical version, but that's such like this big studio polished production. Yeah. And it just looks like a movie from 2007.
Right.
With kids in costumes. So the entire time, Amber's big, like the biggest thing going for her is that she is going to be the queen of this auto show.
That's so the queen of an auto show is so something out of a John Waters movie too. Yeah. It's not like a beauty pageant, or like a major dance competition. It's queen of an auto show.
But it's totally real. When I lived in New York, there was a restaurant that had all the pictures on the wall of the Miss Subways.
That's amazing.
Through the 40s and 50s.
That's
so
amazing.
I mean, that sort of thing is real.
Yeah.
But and just a quick moment, speaking of Amber and practical effects. Amber's house with that staircase and the dripping lamps.
Yeah.
Now, I remember seeing like adults in row houses with dripping oil lamps.
The first floor of that house.
There's a lot to look at.
Amazing. And when they're watching the TV, when Amber gets sent home, and it's like these vertical like I don't know, wires. What are they? And what is it? Is it oil?
It's oil.
That's
oil.
amazing.
There used to be, that used to be a thing.
It's like a fountain?
Now, normally those lights would maybe be 2 feet tall.
Yeah.
The oil. And it would be some sort of like Grecian statue inside and then dripping this oil.
Yeah.
So for him to build that version, it's like 6 feet tall.
It's like 6 feet tall. It's huge. Is the staircase a spiral staircase? No.
I don't think it is.
It's very
curved.
dramatic.
It's dramatic. It is dramatic.
Yeah.
And then Deborah Harry literally being hairstyled like a Keane.
Yes.
Like the Keane portrait.
I love
Keane knockoff.
I love
of
the
her
Keane knockoffs on the walls.
Amazing. Yeah.
I love on the commentary that John Waters refers to them as Walter Keanes.
Yeah.
If you want to get even more like period specific
even
with that.
Hysterical. Yeah.
A Walter Keane painting. I love that. Yeah, that Walter Keane knockoff is beautiful, and it's that iconic Debbie Harry wig.
Amber also has a really cool record player in her room, or it looks like it's a radio, and it's like a hutch.
It's like the one that the top opens.
Yeah.
It's like down in there. Amber's room is poodle themed.
Yeah,
she has poodles. She even has like some Keane looking poodles in frames, and she's got like pink poodle, stuffed animals, and her entire room is pink, and it's amazing. Yeah, that house is just every shot of the interior of that house. I'm just looking around in the background, just like what is going on?
There's a lot to take in.
There is so much to take in, but the Von Tussels, Amber's parents, have devised a plan that if Amber doesn't win, they're going to throw a bomb into the crowd.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's one thing that's never really clearly since they're there too. Although it's a time bomb.
It's like a Looney Tunes. Yeah. It's a Looney Tunes clock bomb.
It's a big alarm clock with like sticks of dynamite or something. And she's wearing this wig that's about 3 feet tall, and it's got a secret compartment, and he, locks it in there, and she's wearing it this entire time at the auto show. So Amber wins at first, right? Because she's sitting or does she just take the seat? Because her whole thing is she's sitting on this throne and is just not going to get out of this throne. Does she win it?
Amber does it first by default of her not being there.
Because Tracy wasn't there.
Because then there's the whole dethroning, tiara ripping off. Yes. Little Inez comes and takes it off of Amber's head,
That's amazing when she snatches that throne.
But honest to God, the heat that we dealt with and danced in for that auto show, I can't even tell you. Amber, is it Colleen Fitzpatrick?
Yeah.
She had recently
Vitamin C
come off of. She was on that season of Saturday Night Live with all the young.
What? Like with Robert Downey Jr. and Anthony Michael Hall?
Anthony Michael Hall.
Wow.
Yeah.
The notorious
Joan Cusack.
The notorious dud season.
It's not a great season.
And she was really fun because while they were waiting around, the camera setups in there because of the mirrors on all the walls were very difficult to do. To be able to, they were trying to get back and give it a certain amount of scope, but all the walls were mirrored through those ribbons and decorations, and so we were dancing right by her throne. And so they had, these dramatic up lights and sideways lights and everything. And so she turned around with her tiara on and looked in the mirror in like this really strong uplight. And she was like, oh my God, I look like Carrie at the prom. And I just started laughing so hard. And she had this moment of like, she was doing a little bit of Carrie in the mirror and everything. Because, what else are you going to do?
That's funny. I love Scott died in that little car that she got in.
I love her little car.
That little buggy.
Yeah,
with like a dome. Like, that looked uncomfortable for her to drive in.
I think she almost literally died because, that car, however that scooter that had the fiberglass bubble in the frame over it, which I love, like Flash Gordon looking little things anyway. Yeah. And I think it must have been because I think it's just got a single wheel in front, and she had to guide it. So she's waving and doing her, prissy Amber wave through the bubble and everything. And then her expression changed. And, we were all like right around the car as she made her circle. And her eyes got real big and she started to bang on the glass because they didn't put air holes in the car. And so they had to come and release the bubble because she was literally running out of air.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, that little thing looks like they just like rigged it up, like they made it. And she is packed in that thing so tight, like she's at this crazy angle, like her back is not even to the back of it, it's to the side,
and so things like that,
yeah,
when she's still doing her thing and being Amber, that's where you give people credit because you don't realize what they're having to put up with.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny. That's amazing. And so then we get Tracy finally makes it to the auto show. She's wearing her pink satin coronation gown,
designed by Mr. Pinky.
Oh, yeah, it's a Mr. Pinky original, covered in cockroaches, and her hair is flat and just flat ironed down, and starts another riot at the auto show coronation. But yeah, that everybody does like, what is it, the bug, or like, what is that dance called, where they're just like throwing it onto each other?
It's the bug after the. Is it the
bug spray
right before the blow up? Yeah, I guess it's
right before it.
Right before the wig blows off.
Yeah,
because we had done a full dance, and again we did all the dances to completion, but they're all cut in the movie. We did a full dance of the roach, with like you're doing the spray
with
when
the
you
spray
do
can
it and everything. And so when the bug starts. That had a lot of extended stuff to it because there were so many reactions of people acting like they had bugs on them and everything. And then when the wig blows off, like he said, and again, like our little kid brains were all like horrified. He said, "So what's going to happen is her wig blows off and it it goes flying off her head and it's all burnt and like pieces of her scalp will like land and on top of Amber." And so when they did that for the crowd reaction and everyone stopping and watching it fly across the room, it was a big mop that the
grip eye line.
The grip made our eye line for, and then for the reverse, they had that great, again a great practical effect to not only have that flat, smoke comes out, a bright light. And it's really Deborah Harry, and then it goes like off of her head.
And her makeup look after the explosion is crazy.
Yes. Yeah,
she's got like black, like soot on her face, and it's like the whole top part of her scalp is like
I watched that whole makeup process. I was fascinated. But yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, God, this movie. I just feel like it holds up in that it's still really funny.
Yeah.
It's still like it's got a good message. It's got a good beat and you could dance to.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, they need to do a complete soundtrack release of it.
Yeah, they really should. But it's just one of those things where like I feel like a certain kind of like theater kids really like the musical, so maybe they would kind of make their way to it, but something about it, I think it's kind of hard for modern audiences to like find it or get familiar with it, just because like the musical was kind of a bigger thing, so maybe people kind of forget about.
I don't even know what the current print of this movie is.
What do you mean?
I'm assuming that it's readily available to rent digitally.
Oh,
too.
Yeah, they did. They showed it at the Egyptian.
Cool.
As part of a, I don't know if you all know this. Greg Proops has a film club, and he'll do podcasts from and just present his favorite films, and they're all over the gamut. But and so they did it. I guess it was last year because it was for the anniversary.
Oh, okay.
Well, then so it would have been 2018. That's when they did it at the Egyptian, and it was a decent print. But can I tell you about the original ending?
Yes,
of course.
In the auto show.
Please
so
do.
After, right now the way the film ends is Tracy says, "Let's dance," and it freeze frames on her and goes right to the end credits. Well, what originally happened, and we were all choreographed on this. It was really something. Is literally the auto show gets integrated. All the black kids come running in and kind of pair off with us, and so it was this big production number of all the dances you'd seen throughout the course of the film. Now, I know, like on Wikipedia, it talks about a missing scene prior to Tracy getting to the dance, or prior to the end of the movie, called The Stupidity. My brain doesn't remember that, but it remembers this original ending because, again, we were all kind of broken off and paired off with an African American kid to dance with, and then it was this huge production number of all the dances you saw in the movie, and the camera went around everybody, so that you could pick out the fact that it was all the different dances being done at the same time.
Okay.
And so when we were at the premiere in Baltimore, at this great Art Deco old movie theater in Baltimore, the Senator, we were all watching and like waiting for the end, and it was like, well, where did that go?
Has John Waters mentioned why they cut it?
I've never heard that even mentioned.
If they had, like, we have to hit 95 minutes.
That's the only thing, not specifically in conjunction with The Last Dance, but the only thing I heard is that New Line specifically was a 90-minute movie company.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, we have to get 5 showings of this a day.
Yeah.
Right.
In a movie theater.
I don't know whether that was just to pacify us asking or not, or the truth. But to me, it was kind of like the whole point of what you're leading up to. And in a kind of, I guess, in a Quentin Tarantino way, in kind of having a fantasy solution to something that didn't really happen, you would get to see Corny Collins actually integrate
the show.
Whereas the Real Buddy Dean show stopped because the TV station wouldn't let him.
Okay.
And they go into that in the musical, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the big, like, you can't stop the beat. Like, final number is kind of that moment of the original ending. Is the reprise of everybody coming in and doing the big dance.
It would be really cool if there was like a Shout Factory re-release of Hairspray, and
Criterion,
they put in the ending.
Who would
sure, because they've been doing a lot of the John Waters movies. So
Criterion now, to me, is the only company that puts the money into the finding of the lost footage.
Okay,
not a lot of people do the budget that it takes because, I
feel like it's either Criterion or Shout Factory. Yeah.
Our DVD of this is the Hairspray Pecker double pack that we have here.
Isn't that funny that it wouldn't?
Why are they together?
We picked it up from Amoeba.
Like, why not Crybaby?
Yeah, exactly.
Crybaby would make more sense.
It would make a lot more
sense. Although I do love Pecker, so
Pecker's actually really funny. This is from the John Waters collection when a lot of his movies came to DVD around the same time.
Yeah.
And they did this John Waters collection. There was a double pack of Female Trouble in Polyester, and then there was like a big, not Polyester, Female Trouble in Pink Flamingos.
We lost our set of that.
We did, sadly. We'll get it again. Do we have any closing thoughts on Hairspray? I mean,
definitely either give it a rewatch, and if you haven't watched it, sit down and enjoy the movie because it is really, really good.
That would be my message to the people who are only familiar with the musical version.
Yes.
Do yourself a favor and watch the original so that get a little bit educated on the real locations. The real songs from that time period, and the real dances, one of the things we learned was the Dirty Boogie, that was at Motor Mouth.
Yeah.
And so, it'll be interesting to just back up what you like about the musical with some of the grittier, real songs of the time period.
Yeah, for sure.
And Pete's looking through some photos that Brian brought.
Some set photos, yeah.
Some set photos, they're really cool.
Yeah, that was back when they didn't care. I did that. I did that for several movies through the 80s. Just brought my camera and
what other movies were you extras in besides this? You mentioned one.
Tin Men was the first.
Tin Men, yeah.
This was the one, because you never know what's even going to be left in. And then because of the amount that we got to do for this was like the most, I guess, rewarding. There was the other... Avalon, Crybaby.
Oh, okay,
I was in Crybaby because that originally had an all different ending also. I was a square marshal, and the original ending of Crybaby was this battle of the bands between the Drapes and the Squares.
Sure.
And they had like the gangs, for lack of a better word, of kids, the two different types of kids, were separated by like rolled barbed wire and everything. And then there was like this battle of the bands, and as I had a thing on my sleeve where I was the marshal to try to keep kids in control and everything. So it was like, it was as if the two groups were musically battling it out. And then again, that was another one we went to see in the movie theater, and it was like, well, what the hell is this ending? And then years later, someone called me and they said, were you in Crybaby? And I was like, well, yeah, but I got cut out of that. And he's like, I just saw you on TV. And so like when the USA Network showed it, they showed the original ending. So
that's crazy.
Got me. I don't know why.
Sometimes television prints get deleted scenes. I remember Weird Science used to... when it was run on television, would include scenes that were not on the home video release, and I was always weirded out by
Goonies
that.
would sometimes have cut scenes.
Yeah. You were probably too young for Diner.
Maybe so. Tin Men was the direct follow-up to that.
Diner was
then
had to be
Avalon,
like 81 or something.
And then they did. They also did. Who was the Ann Tyler? I guess was the Baltimore author who. They did one of her movies. That John Hurt was in.
Accidental Tourist?
Yeah. It was very
Won Gina Davis that Oscar.
It did.
Yeah. And
that's in Baltimore?
Men Don't Leave with Jessica Lange. That was my first Jessica Lange, because then I did Feud with her later. But
where are you in Feud? We're rewatching it right now.
With Jessica Lange, when it opens at the Golden Globes, and they shot it at the Palladium.
Oh, okay.
I'm sitting right next to her.
What? How did we not realize that? We're rewatching it.
And then later on,
we'll
with
go back and
Susan,
look for it.
with Susan Sarandon, it's the script supervisor. I've got that stopwatch around my neck and everything. When Joan comes in after she has been, away from the studio, and she gets wheeled in her wheelchair.
Oh, okay.
But Men Don't Leave, if you haven't seen it, is a cute little movie. Joan Cusack is in it. It was the first thing I ever saw. Oh my God, what's his name? Cutie Cute.
Out. Let me see. Men Don't Leave. These are like titles that I'm just remembering.
It's really worth. It's just a neat little. I don't want to say it's indie per se, but it just has that feel. It's She plays. She's someone who's suddenly widowed.
Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Kathy Bates. Chris O'Donnell.
Oh, yeah. It was the first thing.
This is even like 1990 Chris O'Donnell. So
right.
He's probably super
Absolutely.
cute.
And, but it's really good. It's a really good film.
Charlie Kurzmo from Hook is in it.
Hook.
And she dropped an orange on my head.
Look, Jessica Lange has red hair in this movie. Never see her with that color hair.
Yeah, and Kathy Bates is a riot in it.
Well, she's good in everything.
So yeah, it was a period of time in the 80s and 90s when they filmed a lot of stuff in Baltimore. Movie wise, like I know they did The Wire years later, and then for one reason or another, I think they started to charge people more to do it there, and then I think everyone was like, goodbye.
Moving the production to Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, Cecil B. Demented is all over Baltimore still.
I love the opening of Cecil B. Demented because it's all of the closed theaters in Baltimore.
Oh yeah,
and the opening of Cecil B. Demented, the big premiere for the Honey. I can't think of her character's name, but the big premiere is at the Senator.
Yeah,
in that movie,
which is it's an amazing Survivor. We're lucky that it's around, and it's quite something.
Doesn't it have like handprints in the front? in the cement.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love
Honey
that.
Whitlock.
Honey Whitlock, her big movie. Yeah.
We might have to break out the Cecil B. Demented DVD tonight.
It's pretty stupid, but it's funny. Yeah. And also, if you're a big just movie head like Scott and I, do yourself another favor, and anytime you have your hands on a John Waters DVD, after you watch the movie, watch it with a commentary, because
it's so good.
John Waters is
he's a good storyteller.
Such a good He's so funny. He's such a character.
And so, again, with us at the age group we were in, the way he handled us as kids was really fun.
Well, Ricky Lake, even she's on the commentary as well, but they're not in it's separate interviews that they edit together in the commentary. And she mentions, again, in classic John Waters heroine form, that after she got her hair done for the movie, she was horrified and was crying and wouldn't come out onto the set. And she said that she heard John Waters say, "She better get that fucking bitch better get her ass out if she wants to be in my movie." And they left that in the commentary track. So I'm just like, I wouldn't put it past to say something like that.
Oh, that's funny.
I need to get a new copy of the DVD for Mommy Dearest, because he does a commentary on that movie, and it's really, really good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was just going to say that I think that movie is underrated in a certain way.
That's how he talks in the movie. He says that there's obviously the camp elements of it, of like Joan and Christina like rolling on the ground,
right.
But he also just stands by it as just kind of a good biopic of Joan, of Joan.
Yeah.
Well,
too.
I can't help but feel, and I think we talked a little bit about this with Supergirl, that Faye Dunaway, if you've ever seen somebody who loses it and has a temper, she's very believable of someone who reaches that point.
Yeah.
I mean, the camp throwdown elements aside, when someone loses it and you're wondering how you can escape out of the house, she hits it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But John Waters, when he does these commentaries, he just has this knowledge of, obviously, of his movies. He directed them, he was there, but he just has this amazing memory. He's able to talk about these locations and the people and the extras.
And it seems like he still keeps up with the majority of the actors in all of his movies, that he knows what they're all up to.
Yeah. Well, he goes about making this like troupe of actors. So he,
Yeah. Some of my dancer friends still go to holiday parties, with him.
That's amazing.
I ran into another dancer out here who did you ever see the movie from a couple years ago, The Love Witch?
Yes, we love The Love Witch.
Oh yeah, he's in Stephen Wozniak. He plays one of the gotten rid of husbands.
All right, okay.
And he's an artist too. And then and it's funny when I'll sometimes run into people that I danced with in there.
That's the thing about anytime you watch a John Waters movie, and then in the next one you'll see somebody from the last one, and it's just kind of cool that that he's able to just build this little like group of weirdos that he just kind of keeps along for a ride.
Can I give a shout out to two other dancers?
Of course.
Just Melissa Darwin and Regina Hammond. And the reason I'm giving that shout out is since they didn't give us anything, we didn't get paid for this.
Okay.
We got a cassette of the soundtrack before it was released. And so we thought, and that was fine because of everything we got to do. But based on what you see in other movies, we thought surely at the end there will just be this long list under dancers.
Sure. I was looking for it when we were finishing it too, and it was not there.
So there was quite a few people in the Senator movie theater who thought we were just going to be grouped together under dancers after all that dancing we did over and over again, and it wasn't there. So I just at least wanted to mention some of my fellow dancers.
So they got a credit here. That's awesome. This was really fun.
This was a fun episode.
Yeah, this was really cool.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on.
It's a good start to probably the many John Waters movies that we'll end up doing. I don't know what we'll follow this up with.
But definitely another John Waters joint for sure. But yeah, definitely this was a really good start, and this was maybe we couldn't have done this episode.
Yeah, you added a lot.
Well, I think it's always fascinating to find out things that were in the movie and taken out and things like that, and the truisms of the movie, just location, song wise, and what really happened to the real Buddy Dean show. I think that's important for people to know too.
Oh yeah, for sure. And just like you were saying, maybe a bigger movie or a more studio production might have populated the background dancers with just people from LA.
It definitely adds something that they all look authentic.
Yeah, and just them bringing in just kids from the town. That's really cool. But that's, again, something that John Waters is just known for.
And it speaks of him to be able, especially after what you see in his other films, it speaks well of him to have been able to wrangle us and keep us going as young kids.
Yeah.
There were a lot of us. So,
Yeah, those scenes, especially the record hop and the dances, it's like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of kids going on in there. You can't imagine wrangling all those kids. But yeah, this is a really good if you haven't seen a Divine movie before, watch this.
It's a great showcase of Ricki Lake, because I feel like we all went to high school with a girl like this, the big girl. She had a really big personality. She was always in like every school play, and kind of the person that usually the gay kids just ended up latching on to.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that she really captures that.
Yeah, for sure.
We've all known a Tracy in our life.
If not been one.
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely the truth. Thank you so much for coming on, Brian. This was amazing.
Yeah.
It's really great. Thank you, listeners, once again for listening to our show. We'd love if you would rate and review our show.
Give us 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars. We'd also love if you subscribe to our show on iTunes. So go ahead and give us a listen. Give us a rating and a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and come back next week for another excellent adventure with us. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, see, she's already getting close-ups.
Does she get paid for this? Big as our house.
I think she looks pretty, Edna.